I'm passing these around if you need them. I hope you can join.
Is that for you?
You're passing your microphone too.
Oh, thank you. That's for the program at Venice Golf and Country Club. I think you will enjoy it. It's finished, it's wrapped up. I'm just kind of rehearsing it now. And as always, I ask the Holy Spirit to join us and walk with us through Holy Week all the way to Easter and through our Bible study. And even if you're not here, you are here with us and the Spirit, and we will continue to walk through the Gospel of Mark. Now, once again, on the 31st, if you can join us, I sincerely hope you'll come and listen to the story of Israel and Persia, which Persia is Iran, so it should sound very familiar, right? It's all about the confrontation, the very serious confrontation.
Will this be online also, or will that be online? 'Cause
No,
oh,
not
okay.
unless I can get somebody. That is a very interesting thing. Let me talk to the
Okay.
videographer who's going to run every time she sees me. Monica, see if, because I think she's coming. Maybe she
Okay.
can. What a great idea.
Yeah, because we're gonna be driving home that day, and I don't know if I could do it in the car while we're driving. I don't know how that works.
But no,
it
recording it.
Recording it, yeah.
Thank you, Ann. That's a great suggestion.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, remind me to ask Monica about recording the presentation on the 31st at Venice Golf and Country Club.
Oh.
That's not a bad idea. Well, this confrontation that I'll be discussing, I'm sure you'll agree it's going to sound way too modern. Now, the presentation about Esther is all about looking at a new way to see each other. And that's the hope. And I hope if you can, hi honey, I hope you'll join me, for sure. Just let me know you're coming. Hi Karen. Or you can call the number at the bottom of the page to let the club know you're coming. And please extend the invitation to your friends. If you know somebody who says, the Bible, you're gonna go listen to something about the Bible, it's like so boring and so outdated. Tell them to come, because I promise you,
Hello, I'm just gonna put you on speaker so you can
this
hear everything.
presentation is not outdated
Okay.
or
Right.
boring.
Could I make
It's
a
fun and very interesting. Aiden, who is the amazing talented tech who helped me put the PowerPoint together, he actually did the whole thing, actually. He put the slides on the thumb drive. I did nothing at all, he did. So Aiden made sure that everyone would see the pictures.
I have a I'm
Yes,
sorry for interrupting.
no, not
Can
at
I make
all.
a suggestion? I hung this up at in our community, and most of the people are not, don't live in this area full time. And I would suggest because I did write it down, I would suggest in the future, instead of just having that little, Venice Country Club logo, maybe it could be written out.
What a good idea.
Because I had no idea what that was, and I had to
Absolutely.
search for it. Okay.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Oh, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for all of us to listen to the Word of God, to the messages there. And people might just walk out of the presentation thinking, hi Jeff, I'd like to hear more Bible studies, and that's always a good thing. So let's start our study today on Mark chapter 5. And we're going to be hearing about things that happened way back then, over 2,000 years ago. And interestingly, the same things are still happening now. Things like, how do we deal with mental illness? And what about chronic illness? And what about childhood illnesses? How do we deal with these things in our society today? And how does the way that we deal compare with the way that Mark's community dealt with these issues? And justice. What do we think about justice? Who deserves it, right? And how do we make sure they get it? And oppression, how do we deal with people who deserve more than exploitation? So let's look at how Mark says Jesus dealt with these issues. Now remember, last week when we left Jesus, he had just demonstrated his power. And not just his power over people, and not just his power over demons. Last week we saw his power over nature. The wind, the rain, the sea. We saw all of that when Jesus stilled the storm. And I think we should still see that power played by Jesus as proof that Jesus has power over me and you. Because our lives are filled with storms that absolutely terrify us, the way those disciples were terrified during that storm. Well, Jesus can still the storms in your life. Storms about health, and economic storms, emotional storms, things that can scare you to death. Jesus can fix your fear. All you have to do is ask. Just like the disciples asked. Remember what Mark told us they did? When the sea was raging and the boat was in danger of being swamped, they found Jesus and they woke him up saying, Jesus, don't you care what's going on? Can't you see we're perishing? Do something. Deliver us from trouble. Save us from the storms in our lives. And just like Jesus did on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus will do that for you. He will still the storm that's within you. So thanks for sharing that, Mark. We need to hear that and live like we know that on a regular basis. Now, look at what Mark tells us next. Ready? Chapter 5. They finally get to the other side of the sea or the lake, and now they're in the country of Genesenes, which is also called Gesara, which is also called Jerash. Today, this area is in the modern-day country of Jordan, but it still is an ancient Jewish town. Now, in the days of Jesus, this area had a very Hellenistic feeling. And we remember Hellenism, right? Strong Greek influence. But it was a Jewish town. So the Greek and the Jewish led to clashes from time to time. Greek versus Jewish culture clash. Now, in the New Testament, we read that this area is called the Decapolis. So it's a federation of 10 Greco-Roman cities, but it's under the direct control of the Roman governor of Syria. And we know about this. We know that Jesus visited this area. So he knew this area because he worked there. So we should think about the cultural synergy that was there, Jewish, Greek, Roman, mixed with Jewish and Gentile followers of Jesus, which became early Christianity, and later Muslim government and religion influence, all living together. So see, it can be so complicated to see. So that's why we have to look with the light of the Holy Spirit to see all these different parts. Now you can visit this area today and get a pretty good feeling of how it looked back in the day. For a variety of reasons, this area is now called the Pompeii of Palestina. It's very well preserved, and it has been extensively excavated by 3 different schools starting in 1928. First, the British School of Archaeology, located in Jerusalem, which is still there, still operating as a research institution, and the American School of Oriental Influence. Of course, nobody would call it Oriental today, but that's what it was called then. Well, the American School of Eastern Influence became a non-profit, and it's still working today to protect ancient sites around Syria. And it was also extensively excavated by Yale University. Go Eli's. We had tons and tons of information and exhibitions about this. Of course, we know Yale is still there in New Haven, still funding projects worldwide. And you can visit Genesaretness today, and I understand it's amazing. You enter through this huge ornamental arch, and then you can visit these ruins, and there's a hippodrome there, a racetrack, and a place for gladiator fights, and there's a large site that was where outdoor markets were held, markets for livestock. And there's a long line of columns along the side of the sort of a highway that leads to the temple of Zeus, which functioned as a forum, a designated outside place, which was designed for public discussions. So it's so cool, and you can take a virtual tour. That's what I did. I thought it was so cool. Now, back to Mark, who tells us Jesus started in Capernaum, sailed across the sea, gets out of the boat in the area of the region of Genesaretness. Now, this story that Mark tells is also told in Matthew, but he calls the same area Gadarenes. But Luke calls it same thing, Gerasenes. But they both assume Markan priority. Luke follows Mark more closely, but Matthew changed the name of the place. So people ask, why did he do that? Well, some say that Matthew faced a small geographical challenge so that he could fit the pigs into the story. Because the way Matthew had previously set up the story, those pigs would have had to travel a long distance to get to that mountainside, right? But I'm not even sure that's true. But let's tell the story and see what you think. As far as the pigs are concerned, you're probably thinking, those pigs are not Jewish, because they're not kosher, right? See what you think. As soon as Jesus got out of the boat, suddenly, bam, a person possessed by an evil spirit came at him from the direction of the tombs to accost him. And now begins probably the most detailed description in the Bible of a demon, a demoniac, and the extraction of one from the other. And we can tell that this demon is confrontational because Mark writes he came to accost Jesus. And where did he come from? The tombs. The demon lives with dead people. And you can get a really more detailed description of this demon in Luke's Gospel, chapter 8, if you're interested. But Mark's description, I think he's pretty descriptive too. And you get the idea that this guy is dangerous. He shouldn't be walking around. But nobody is able to bind him. The people of the time, they tried to bind him, but every time they think they have the guy chained up and away from the kids of the town, what happens? He gets out. But this demon gets himself out of his bindings. He sets himself free. He breaks his chains, and he cracks open his fetters, which is like handcuffs or ankle cuffs. Now think about that. Does this happen today? Well, some people say, you bet it does. Every time we think we protect our kids from the demons of violence, what happens? They get out. Some judge lets them out of jail, or some DA refuses to press charges or deport them. So our kids get raped, shot, stabbed. People are set on fire. They're pushed under subway trains. They're killed. And just like these demons in Mark, nobody can stop them. Nobody can subdue them in their violence. Now, do you think that's true? Think about it. Do you think that we're able to protect our kids, our citizens, our vulnerable citizens in our community from the demons of violence? And this is such a sad, depressing question, and a sad, depressing comparison of then and now. And there's more. The demon in Mark's community is loud. He howls at the top of his lungs, night and day, as he sits among the tombs. It's so terrifying and so sad. Mark says that you can hear him over the hills. So why do you think he's howling? To scare everyone? Or do you think he could be howling in loneliness? That he's trapped in his own fear of never feeling well again. It's sad. And it gets worse, because look at what he does to himself. He picks up stones, and he uses those stones to hurt himself. He cuts himself, and he bruises himself. This man needs help. And look at verse 5. This man sees help when he sees Jesus. So the demon-filled man runs up. Of course, there's the man, and there's the demon, or as we'll soon see, the demons, right? So we have to listen carefully to figure out who's talking, the man or the demons. Well, both of them are now kneeling in front of Jesus, and it sounds like the demon is shouting at the top of his lungs, "What do you want with me, Jesus? You are the Son of the Most High. Please, in the name of God, don't torment me." Now, did you notice that the demons know who Jesus is? No introduction, right? So do you think we have the faith that the demons have? Do you think we would recognize Jesus if he showed up in our community today? And now, Mark adds a brief but very important aside. The demon is shouting this because Jesus is shouting at the demon. He's telling him, doesn't sound like Jesus, but look at what he says. Jesus says, "You filthy spirit, come out of that man." Is that what it says in your?
Unclean.
Unclean spirit.
Unclean. Oh, your Bible is cleaned up.
Evil spirit.
Oh my God, the Hebrew. Do you have
Hers
I
says
just have evil spirit.
evil?
Too.
Yeah,
I am unclean.
unclean, which is filthy, isn't it? Yeah. Lutherans are so nice, you know. And now Jesus turns to the guy and he starts to question the guy with the demon. And the first thing that Jesus asks him is, "What's your name?" And the spirit answers, the filthy spirit answers and says, "Legion." We're named Legion because there are so many of us in this one man. Now, first of all, back in the day, it was believed that if you knew the name of your enemy, you had an advantage over your enemy. Remember when Jacob and God have that wrestling match by the riverside? So maybe this reading is just allegorical, didn't really happen. But do you know what a legion really is? It's a term.
Soldiers. Soldiers and large.
Gathering.
Yeah, it's a term for a group of soldiers. And in the Roman Empire, a legion usually consisted of around 6,000 men. Oh boy. That's a lot of men, right? Certainly a lot of demons. Well, then the spokesdemon of this group says, "Jesus, please don't send us away." He's begging Jesus. And now Jesus sees that there was a herd of pigs by the mountain, and they were feeding, grazing, or rooting around on the mountainside. So the spokesdemon says, "Look, Jesus, over there. Send us over there to the pigs so that we may enter them." And Jesus agreed with him. So the unclean spirits came out of the man and went into the pigs. And then the pigs, this whole huge herd of pigs, rushed down the bluff and jumped or fell into the sea. And there were at least 2,000 of them, and they all drowned. And then the herdsmen ran off, and they reported what they had just seen in the city and in the countryside. And then everyone came to see where it happened. So what do they see when they get there? Well, they see Jesus sitting there, and right next to him, the demoniac was sitting. But now the man was wearing clothes, and he clearly has his wits about him. And it's hard to believe. He looks normal. But everyone says, how can that be? How can he be normal? He was the one who had legion inside of him. Well, when the people of the town and the country saw this, they all got scared. They heard about the demons and the pigs and the drownings, and now they see that the demoniac looks more like a normal man and less like a demon, and this scares them. They're saying, what kind of power does this guy Jesus have? They don't know, and they don't like it. So they beg Jesus to leave. Imagine that. They say, please, just get in your boat and go back where you came from. So Jesus did. And as he was getting into the boat, the ex-demoniac wouldn't let go of him. He kept grabbing Jesus and kept telling Jesus, don't go without me. Let me come with you. I will serve you. But Jesus told him, no, you should go home. Go back to your family. They'll be so happy to see you looking this way. You look so good. Go show everyone how well you look, and tell everyone how you got that way. Tell them what your patron has done for you. Tell them how he has shown you mercy. Now, in your Bible, does it say patron?
No.
What does it say?
The Lord.
Tell them what the Lord.
This one says, how much Jesus has done.
Oh,
for him.
Jesus. Interesting. That sounds a little later than that. Oh, that's the, yeah, that probably is.
Is this the first time he told people to go tell about him? Because before he was telling, don't tell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the first time?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. This is probably the first, and I think in Mark, probably the only time Jesus says, tell everyone. This was just one man. But remember, but Jesus has probably got his head screwed on right now because he knows nobody listens to him. Don't tell, blah, 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 so. But the man left Jesus. He went away and he started to spread the news all over the Decapolis, all about how Jesus had saved him. And everyone who heard him marveled at what Jesus had done. So Jesus crossed the sea again. He went over to the other side, and of course he was surrounded by that large crowd, so there was no room for him. Everyone was pushing up against him. Well, one of the synagogue officials finds him, and this guy's name was Jairus. And the minute Jairus recognizes Jesus, he falls on his knees right in front of Jesus. And Jairus begs Jesus, my little daughter is on the verge of death, so please come with me to my house and put your hands on her so that she can be cured and live. So Jesus sets off with Jairus, and of course with that large crowd following them. But actually, the crowd wasn't just following them. The crowd was pressing in on them, almost shoving them, as crowds will do. And now get ready, because we are about to be served another Markan sandwich. Okay, we just got the top piece of bread. Jairus tells Jesus about his daughter. He tells Jesus, I need help. And now here comes the sandwich filling, which comes with the story of the body and the blood. Sounds familiar, right? A story we know. Well, in this pushy, shoving crowd, there's a woman who has had a vaginal flow for 12 years. This poor woman, for 12 years, she has suffered so much under so many doctors. She spent every penny or shekel that she's ever had trying to get well, to stop the flow, but to no avail. In fact, the doctors seem to have made her condition even worse, not better. Well, this poor woman had heard about Jesus. Who hasn't heard about Jesus, right? She heard that he had the power to heal. So she thought, if only I could just touch his cloak, his clothes, his fringes, then I could be cured. So that's what she did. She reached out and she touched the hem of Jesus's tunic. And just then, the vaginal flow stopped instantly. And she knew, she sensed it in her body. She was cured. But Jesus was a different sensation for him. Jesus suddenly feels the power draining from him. And he must have known it was because someone touched him. So Jesus starts asking anyone, and he starts with his disciples, "Did you see who touched me?" Now they must have thought that Jesus was losing his marbles, right? They asked Jesus, "Who touched you?" "You can't be serious, Jesus. Look at this crowd. Everyone is touching you, and they're touching us." But Jesus started looking around. And when the woman who touched Jesus saw him looking around, she got scared and she started trembling because she realized what she had done. So God bless her. This woman got up and she came over to Jesus. How brave, right? And she fell down before him and she said, "It was me." And then she told Jesus the whole story, the whole truth. And after she stopped talking, then Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your trust has cured you. Go in peace and bid farewell to your illness." What a story, right? Well, that was the filling of the sandwich. And here's the top piece of bread to finish making the sandwich. Think about her bravery. She told her truth to power. She's brave. Now, do you think we're that brave? Is this woman here to show us that we're bleeding too? And the only way to stop the bleeding is to reach out and touch the power of Jesus. Now, when you read this story or heard about this story or learned about this story, did you think it's just a woman story? Of course, in today's world, there's no such thing as a woman story, right? Because in today's world, there's like no such thing between a man or a woman because we're all like binary, right? And men, let's face it, men can experience vaginal flows, and you go like this, right? And that's why, and I have heard this,
But
Todd?
you're speaking to the wrong crowd right here.
Ask your teens, ask your teenagers, well, of course, Pastor Donna. And that's why in some men's rooms, right here in the United States, there are tampons and pads to deal with vaginal flow in men's and boys' restrooms. Now, did you ever hear of that?
Yes.
I've heard of it,
Yes,
actually.
it's not on news
I
yesterday.
had to
I think
go.
it was New Hampshire, they were questioning the politicians, what size tampons are you gonna put in there?
Appropriate.
There's
It's
appropriate, there's four, I guess there's 4 sizes, whatever.
They should ask a woman. Oh, wait, you can't talk, there's no.
Yeah, and they're gonna do it, they're gonna actually put them in there.
Well, they're in. Is anybody here from Minnesota?
No.
I in Tour Tuesday, there are a lot of people who are snowbirds or recently moved here from Minnesota. And I was like, the only thing, I'm from New York, but the only thing I knew about Minnesota is that Pastor Rob always teased, you know, he would say, I'm from Minnesota, land of Lutherans, and I'm like, what the heck happened to the Lutherans in Minnesota, right? I had no idea.
Well, that's why on Fox News, they refer to the governor of Minnesota as Tampon Tim, because he's the one who was in favor
But you know,
of
I
machines
looked
in schools.
at the law in Minnesota, and to be very honest, it's more complicated than it sounds.
That's why you have to look into all this stuff.
Yeah,
Can't just leave
the
everything
point
face value.
is, some of those restrooms, even though they're designated boys or men's, may be used at certain times for women, so they wanna make sure they're prepared. I don't know, but the point is, vaginal blood flow is still causing problems for some people right here today. But now back to Mark.
Uh-oh, wait a minute, we got a man question here.
Oh, a man's question.
Years ago, a lady came down to the food pantry after registering her child at the kindergarten, and the school informed her that, don't be surprised, but there's kitty litter in the restrooms. 'Cause some
Kitty
chil-
litter.
Some children.
That was shown not to be true.
Go ahead, let him
I
finish.
think,
And our kindergarten, in our town, it was in there.
I
Because some
found-
kids, like,
because
pretend
they're-
they're cats or.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
would there be,
I read that.
Identify as a cat.
Yeah.
I think-
oh, not because they were eating cats.
No,
No.
cat litter in the restroom.
Because the child identifies
Some of them are
as a
identified
cat.
as a
They were
cat.
following what the cat did.
So they
Oh, that's
go in,
bizarre.
I think those are things that we need to really research.
Yeah.
Because this has gone around
use the
and
litter?
it has been shown that it was made up because of,
Political.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not saying that yours was, I'm just saying
Saying,
I've
right.
researched in other cases and it was made
Yes.
up. I don't know your case was.
Well, but
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to have a clear-cut distinction in terms of Minnesota, because I had no idea, and it is a complicated, you just can't take things at face value, you have to look a little bit deeper.
Right.
And you have to look with an open heart, an open mind.
Yeah.
And it did, and I'll tell you, when we look at the world today, that just didn't seem like a huge problem.
Right.
You know, that I wanted to
Not the
spend
top
a
of
lot
our
of
list,
time
yeah.
with,
Yeah.
But what do you think Mark wanted us to think when we ate this Markin sandwich? You know, well, let's look, because the story's not quite over, but what do you think?
I think it's all about faith, that you trust and have faith, that you,
There'll be tampons no matter what.
whatever you need.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, whatever you need.
So, now the story isn't quite done yet, because Jesus goes back to the synagogue, and he goes back to teaching, because that's what Jesus does, and he heard someone tell Jairus, who works at the synagogue, why don't you just stop bothering this man Jesus? He can't help your daughter anymore. That ship has sailed because your daughter just died. Oh my God. But Jesus overheard what the overhearer heard. So Jesus told Jairus, don't listen to him. And here comes faith, right? Don't be afraid, Jesus. Have faith. Trust me. And that's good advice for us, right?
Yes.
Have trust, not fear. And don't you wish we could all listen to Jesus? But we don't, not enough. Well, here in Mark's sandwich preparation, Jesus takes Jairus and they start walking. Just them and only 3 others, not the big crowd. Jesus would only take 3 other disciples with him to Jairus' house. Peter, John, and James. And remember, those are the same 3 he took up the mountain for the transfiguration. Well, check this out, because this is also transfiguring in so many ways. They came to Jairus' house, and everyone there's crying and wailing. Everyone's so sad. A little girl just died, a 12-year-old girl. But Jesus tells the whole group, stop this. Why are you crying? Why are you carrying on like this? This child has not died. She is asleep. But everyone knew better, so they started to laugh at Jesus. Never a good idea. Asleep? What's wrong with you, Jesus? What is he, blind? This girl is dead. So then Jesus throws them all out of the house, and he only allows his disciples and the mother and the father of the child, Jairus and his wife, are allowed to stay with Peter, John, and James. So they're the only ones who see Jesus take the child's hand, and they're the only ones who hear Jesus say, Talitha komi, which means, little girl, wake up. And then that small group, they all saw the little girl get right up and start walking around. And now, Mark writes, then look in your Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, incidentally, she was 12 years old. Now, why would Mark shove that little fact in at the end of the story, right? Think about that. 12 years old, 12 years of vaginal flow. Now, do you think that's a coincidence? No, people say there are no coincidences in the Bible, right? God put everything there on purpose. So what do you think about that?
What was the connection to?
Yeah, let's think about that some more.
But there's a lot of numbers in the Bible that keep
Right,
repeating.
right, formulaic numbers, 7, 40,
40.
Yeah, 40's a big one.
multiples of both. Well, let's stay there because we're going to talk about numbers in a minute. Of course, everyone in this story is ecstatic. Happiness and gratitude are just flowing from the parents. And the 3 disciples must be impressed, right? But I wonder what the 12-year-old, the recently revived 12-year-old is thinking. And what were you thinking? Do you think that this was a resurrection story? Or do you think it was one of those auto CPR stories where auto resuscitation, you come back to life yourself?
Wasn't it exactly what happened with Lazarus, though? They'd seen it before.
But he was 4 days dead. This one was probably not even 4 hours dead. So I think it's more likely if it was an auto resuscitation, she had a better chance. You know how they pull, oh dear Jesus, young children out of frozen ponds and after an hour, and it's a miracle, but it's medical, yeah. Well, Jesus doesn't want them talking about it. Here we go again with what you said, Pam. Jesus gave everyone strict orders not to tell anyone what just happened. No matter what you think it was, keep it to yourself. And then Mark has Jesus add an incidental. Very strange, I think, because just then Jesus turns to the parents and says, oh, give her something to eat. Doesn't that sound strange to you?
So what's the group of people that are outside there, I assume, at the door?
Yeah, they didn't see anything.
So
they'll
when
see
are they
her.
gonna see the girl walk out eventually?
They're
at some
going
point,
to.
and then
Oh, yes, they're
Oh,
going
they'll-
to. Without a doubt.
they have-
But what does it say in your Bible that Jesus, the last thing he says after the cure, when the little girl's walking around, what does it say?
He strictly ordered
Give her
them that no one should
something
know
she
this
should
and
give
give
her
them,
to eat.
and told them
Give
to
her
give her something to eat.
Give her
Yeah.
something to eat.
That
Why would he say that?
That is kinda odd.
Right?
Well,
Make her a sandwich, She's
normal.
Right,
Yeah, that
Yeah.
she's really alive, not a
Yeah.
ghost.
and she's been sick, she
She
hasn't
needs
eaten
nourishment.
anything.
but when you read this, aren't you thinking that Jesus would say, Mom and Dad, look, this is your baby
Yeah.
girl. Take her, love her, hold her forever, be good to her, teach her all about me. But first, give her something to eat, you know. It's
She's been through the ringer.
strange, yeah, but actually, I think this whole chapter is kind of
But
strange.
it is about the physical nourishment that she's been through, give her strength, which the giving her something to eat would do. And
Can I
see,
have her and
I
kiss
didn't
her
make the
first?
connection
Yeah.
about the 12 years with the flow and the 12 years. For me, I kept thinking 12 years old, that's when young girls were presented.
Starting to
And they were,
menstruate?
well, yes, but they were also often married when they were
Yeah.
12 or 13 years old. So
Yeah.
that was, gave you more of an idea of who she was.
But, and yet Jesus says so often, I always got the impression she was much younger, because he always
I
says
did too.
little. You know, I picture
Yeah.
this little, not quite a
Because that's
toddler.
the way it
but-
sounds to begin with,
Yeah.
and then aside that she's 12 years old.
Exactly.
She's not quite such a baby.
Exactly.
But I'm thinking Martha, the practical one.
Yes.
The kid hasn't been eating because she's been sick.
Yeah.
Give her something to eat.
Yes, but didn't we always think Jesus was more like mushy Mary, like, oh, so sweet, you know, not like Martha. Martha was
I
the
don't know, it
practical.
starts with the miracle at Cana and make sure that they have wine because it would be.
Well, he only did that because his mother made
Well, I
it.
know, but he still did it so that the family wouldn't be embarrassed.
Exactly.
Because his mother made him?
Yes.
It's true, he told her, it's not my time, just do what he tells you.
Yeah. Don't give me any of your
That's
guff.
exactly right.
Jewish mother, yes.
So,
Except for the time he was not speaking nicely about
I know, when he was that brat, I know. We're gonna talk about that next week, but first, let's take a look at the first event that Mark told us about, Legion. So maybe we can think that the Legion story was not a theological story, it was more of a political story about Israel, which was a country that was under occupation and dominated for over 700 years. And at this time that Mark is writing, the people of Israel feel helpless due to so many failed rebellions. They wanted their freedom, they rebelled, they got squashed. And this area that we've been talking about, this Decapolis, was one of the major areas of conflict between the Jewish minority and the Gentile overlords, who are the Romans, right? And the Romans were so proud of what they called the Pax Romana, the German peace. I'm so sorry, the Roman peace, but the Nazis stole that too. But when the natives of the land revolted and rebelled and threatened that peace, the Romans were absolutely brutal in retaliation. And that's where we are when Mark is written. The occupation polarized the whole area. So some Jews became collaborators, and others became resistors. Some lived normal lives and others just withdrew from normal life. And many of them became Sicaries. Do you know the Sicarios? They participated, they were assassins. Assassination campaigns that were directed at their own countrymen. So there were Jews killing other Jews because of politics. And Jesus walks into this world as a teacher and a preacher. He eats with tax collectors and all kinds of perceived enemies. And I think that we can assume that the Roman occupation was truly a cause of shame for the Jews. The Gentiles are defiling the land that God gave to them, which of course in the minds of many Jews was a punishment. God was punishing them because they sinned and they needed forgiveness, renewal. So there was a real depression, societal depression among the natives. And every time a Jew passed a Roman soldier on the street, it signaled shame. So maybe that's what this pericope is. It's a political statement to ease the shame. Now, did you notice that that whole Legion story by Mark is filled with military imagery? legions, of course, named for the soldiers, and the pigs. I always thought the pigs was just the pigs, but on further consideration, I learned that a group of recruits, new recruits like probies in the Roman Empire, was called a herd of pigs. Oh, watch out, here comes the herd of pigs, you know. It was the nickname, right? And the expression in verse 13, and then he dismissed them. He gave them leave. That's military jargon. And then the pigs rush over the cliff. That sort of sounds like a battle charge. And a legion truly is a disciplined military machine, a fighting machine to take control and to keep control of the man's body. And they have to stay disciplined to do that. So some say that this pericope describes a rebellion against the Pax Romana. And it also shows a complete disregard for property. Because those pigs are wasted, right? But seriously, there were terrible rebellions, little ones and big ones, but the retaliations were the same for both. Terrible. But it is possible that the Jews thought the Roman soldiers, all of them, were pigs. And that's, we had this big discussion in Torah Tuesday about, starting in the 60s, people started calling police, soldiers, and I come from a family where honestly, most of the men in my family were NYPD, or they worked for, even the women worked in the police department, so you sure didn't hear that in my house, but, one person had visited Kent State the week before the shootings, and she remembers it very clearly, calling the Vietnam War, the struggles. But let's think about Legion, for example, now. Do you see any modern parallels in the way we treat our legions today? Are we taking care of the legions in our world? Because no one should be living alone in a cemetery or in a park or in a parking lot after dark, right? And no one should be howling into the night, hurting themselves, bruising themselves. No one should be threatening to hurt the community. So what should we do? Should we try to get the legions out of those places and put them away into safe places? It's tricky because you remember Geraldo Rivera and Willowbrook, freeing people who should never have been in that horrible institution. And you were in that business, and a lot of people can't live out there successfully. And it's up to us to provide places where it's a tricky question. But what about that Mark and Sandwich story? What does Mark want us to learn from that story? It's a story about blood and death and coming back to life after death. But think about how we treat, first of all, the mentally ill, and even people who are ill-equipped to live in society. They've been incarcerated for so long. We let them out. They're not trained, I have some training in that because I'm a licensed, I'm an LDAC. That's who I deal with, people who are mentally ill and addicted, which are also comorbidities. How do you deal? They're homeless because they make bad decisions, and they make bad decisions because they have an illness. In many cases, two illnesses that function at the same time. And I don't know if there was a time when my baby Shelby was in a stroller, and I was the only one on 6th Avenue line that could take the stroller on the bus because my father was the driver. To take it on. But he said, oh God, Donna, you're not gonna. But I was like afraid, you know, you couldn't walk in Times Square back then. It was a different world when 42 years ago. We cleaned it up. It's a mess again, but no matter what you think of Giuliani, and there's a lot to think about Giuliani. But yeah, he cleaned it up. He was using that broken window policy. I don't know, do we wanna live in a broken window world, or we just wanna break more windows to let more people out? You know, how do you feel about that? What does Jesus teach you in the Word when you see how He dealt? We can help demons come out of people. Medication, right?
Last night, I heard on Laura Ingram's show, they were talking about the fact that the Pope has been asked to create more exorcists. We need more exorcists in this world.
Wow.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Didn't we just talk about
Yeah.
And it was, well, Laura Ingram and.
that? She's a Catholic. I
She
think, I'm
is,
pretty
and
sure.
and I can't think of the guy's name that's, and he's Catholic as well, the ones that they were talking about this story, that
Wow.
they want.
I'm thinking exorcists, I'm thinking social workers, doctors, therapists,
Yeah.
love. I'm thinking
Exorcists.
any kind of love that can put them in pajamas, tuck them in, give them a meal, a shower, cut their hair, medicate them, whether, if it's a risk reduction drug like, almost anything,
I just had read something that was, I think it was one of the Scandinavian countries, and I can't remember which one it was, but they have found format or protocol dealing with mental illness and homeless people that is exactly opposite from the way our country deals with it. So they flipped it upside down. So basically how the United States deals with it is, once you get your shit together, then you can get this, and then you can get that, and then you can get that, and then you can get that.
Oh.
So they flipped it, and they're like, okay, we're gonna give you this service to help you with medication, let's
Oh,
say.
thank God.
And we're gonna give you, housing so you can have some stability. And I don't know if any of you know about Family Promise, but I'm very, very involved with it in
Did you say
Wisconsin.
Family Promise?
Yes.
We have talk afterwards.
Yeah, I started I was one of the people who started it in Waukesha County, and we've had it for 12 years now, and it's amazing. But anyhow, so they give them, because that is truly, truly the cornerstone of
The family.
the world. Even a single person, you need stability. So anyhow, this Scandinavian country has flipped that model upside down and has given them, the tools to become stable.
They did that with their prison system too. They started still incarcerated, they started training prisoners, not to be good prisoners, but to be good free people when they got it. But from what I understand, at Faith, there's a person in the study group that I do on Saturdays there. He is Swedish, and he said it's getting harder and harder because that whole Scandinavian is not like it used to be because it's a sanctuary, practically peninsula.
Right.
So they're inundated, and the money isn't the same, and the languages, and the challenge, add everything that we just talked about, added to assimilation. This is mostly white Protestant company dealing with mostly Arab, Muslim immigrants. How do we work together when we don't even understand each other? So take everything that we've been talking about and just put on more blinders and make it even more difficult. But I do remember, and I think it was Norway, had a very successful release program because they had flipped it, not trying to get them ready when they leave, get them ready before they
And they
leave.
could be using all that time in prison to learn a trade.
To learn
Well, they do. They they learn a trade, they learn to be better murderers, they learn
Well,
to be
that's,
better.
yeah.
They don't,
And I think to me,
reading.
yeah,
They
to
don't teach them to read, they give them,
I don't get it, but anyhow, I think, and the cornerstone, I think, is shame. You know, we judge and shame people who are homeless, who are mentally ill, all these things. So as soon as we see something like that, it's like, well, you better do your job and figure it out, and then you can get something, instead of trying to understand.
Just like Mark said
Right.
in his things, well, who do you think sinned? Was it his parents? That's why he's blind, you know, that's why. Somebody, when I'm not paying for that, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
One of the things with the population, the Christian population too, is that a lot of them do have learning disabilities and other
Oh,
kinds of things. So,
Which
and what
exacerbated why they got there in the first
and what's the
place.
stats?
Or-
80% of incarcerated people have a mental illness or substance abuse.
a lot of ADHD, a lot of
contributes.
And
ADHD
PTSD.
personalities
I mean-
who make bad decisions. They act, then think, rather than think, then act.
And that's trauma. They're
Right, it's
all victims of trauma. And how do we do that? And look at us, we're so smart, we're so
We got it all together.
modern, and, you know. You know, but here's us, we're not only smart and modern and intelligent, we're Christian, we've got, what are we doing? You know, we're, all right, so I'm not even gonna get into the feminist queer lens because.
I'm sorry, don't get me started.
I got my oar out.
All right, well, we have 5 minutes left, and I'll just tell you, next week, if you're not here, we will miss you, but you'll be here in spirit, and we will go forth. So listen to us and send your questions to me. You know, we communicate.
How can we launch this at home?
It's website.
It's on the website.
It's okay
Yeah.
with me, I don't mind doing this next
Sometimes it
Thursday.
doesn't get up right away, but it will get up.
Okay, so it's
I
not,
have a
it's not
notification
live.
when it's
No,
up.
it's not
Okay.
live.
Alright.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's
No,
like
it-
the
Yeah,
service
you
is
know, once
recorded
we
and then
start
a
meeting at a certain time, I
message
need
will
to
be
break
sent
it
out.
up
Yeah.
because then.
But we do that with the Sunday service, we have not started doing that with Bible
Yeah,
study.
next week will be 11
It's
to
not been as
12.
much of a thing to do that.
Yes, and I hope I can get your wife, come back, you know, come back to church anytime.
Yeah, well, she just, her hours where she works.
Good, God, I
I know when she's
understand.
going in, I have no idea when I'll see her.
All right, so get ready for next week, because next week, the disciples get their marching orders. They're gonna go out to teach on their own, and Jesus gives them this big, you can do it, guys, it's like the worst recruiting speech in the world. I'm not joking, you wouldn't go if you heard him. And next week is the end of the road for the Baptist. How John died, we learned, and why he died. It's all explained. And probably, in that section of Mark, probably absolutely nothing is true about what Mark wrote about John the Baptist. It didn't happen that way, yeah, historically. It's probably, Mark presents it probably more from a political angle rather than historically accurate angle. Mark wants to make sure that that hostility toward the Romans and the Jewish officials who side with the Romans, he wants to make sure his people are still upset with them. He doesn't want, you know, natural death. He wants death by the oppressors. He wants to ensure hostility when it comes to that dominant culture. And you'll hear that even in the academy. Sad story. But then Mark tells us a really good story, a miracle story about food. And this is a good one, and I wish you all a good week. Godspeed, safe travels, get ready for Holy Week. Or as Aiden and other pastors call it, the week from hell, because it's But Shavua Tov, not me, I love Holy Week.